everybody. Welcome to the Dating is Hard podcast. I'm your host, Joe Welkie. For all the info on this podcast, the updates, go to datingishardcomedy.com. Follow the Instagram at datingishardcomedy. And follow me on Instagram at Joe Welkie. You can see all the updates about this show, the live show, and all of my other shows. Please subscribe, rate, review, give it 5 stars, tell a friend, etc. And yeah, the Dating is Hard live shows every 4th Wednesday at Pack Theater. It's a by donation theater, so that means if you got extra money to throw the theater's way, please do. But if you don't, you can still come and enjoy the awesome show. Today's guest I met via Tinder. Her name is Audrey, and I gotta tell you guys, I really love this episode for how honest and forthcoming Audrey is about her, her fuck-ups and where she went wrong, and also had some really good funny stories. So I think you guys are going to really dig this episode, so please enjoy my chat with Audrey. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dating is Hard podcast. I'm your host, Joe Welkie. This is a podcast that's all about dating and relationships and all that good stuff, and how I meet like 90% of my guests are through dating apps. I have profiles set up that are like, hey, I'm looking for people with funny, entertaining, unique stories, and that is how I met my guest today. Everyone, I'd like to welcome to the show Audrey. Audrey, thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You should be thankful, you son of a bitch. So Audrey and I got connected through Tinder. How's Tinder going for you?
It's been pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, that's the end of the show, everybody. Are you on any of the other ones or just Tinder?
No, because I found like I have done like multiple apps at a time, but you see the same freaking people.
Yeah. I feel like everybody has one on every single one.
So what's the point? I just do one. That's fine. That's fine with me.
Is Tinder your favorite one?
So far, Tinder and Bumble.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yes.
All right.
What else?
Have you tried any of the other ones? Have you done like Hinge or anything?
I tried Hinge. I didn't really like Hinge.
Why not?
I don't know. I didn't really get a lot of dates through Hinge. Well, I did date one guy, and he totally didn't look like his pictures. But
got catfished.
So that kind of killed it for me.
Well, how did it kill it? Because you dated him.
I didn't date him. I went on one date.
Oh, okay.
Does that count as dating?
That doesn't count as dating.
Yeah.
You went on a date.
Yeah, a date.
I feel like dating is like
It's like dated. I dated. No, that doesn't sound right either.
No, you went on one date with that guy. That's not. I feel like dating is like when you're like exclusive. Like, hey, we're dating now.
I don't know about exclusivity. I mean, you could be dating somebody, you're not exclusive.
How many dates does there need to be for you to consider it's like we're dating now?
Like, I don't know, a few?
Like 3 or 4?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I could accept that.
Okay.
Well, because you just said that you dated a guy and you were like, I met him once.
No, I said I went out with one. Wait, what did I say?
You said
Did I say that?
You said I dated a guy from Hinge. And he didn't look anything like his picture.
Are you sure I said that?
I'm 100%
Rewind this shit right now.
Yeah, you definitely said it.
All right, fine. My bad.
No, it's okay. We're all about forgiveness here on the Dating is Hard podcast.
I mean, I don't consider it catfishing. He just put up old pictures.
I fucking hate that.
I hate that shit too.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like, you think your personality is that gonna like shine through where I'm gonna overlook that? No.
Well, did he look much better in the pictures?
Yes.
Yeah, my rule is like 2 years. You have 2 years. That's as far back as you can go for pictures before it's like, dude, go fuck yourself.
I have older than 2-year pictures though.
Oh my God, Audrey!
I look the same. Don't I?
I don't know. I just met you like a half hour ago. I don't fucking know.
But from the pictures, you saw my profile.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know.
Are you saying I don't look like my pictures?
I don't know.
Are you serious?
No, you look like your pictures.
That doesn't sound convincing.
I don't know. I have to relook at them.
Okay, let's show you right now. Okay,
yeah, all right. Let's relook at these pictures.
Come on.
You
Like-
tell me which ones are from more than 2 years ago.
Okay.
This is great for a non-visual podcast. Everyone listening is like, I don't know who the fuck this lady is.
More than 2 years ago is... Okay, your reception here kind of...
Wow, trashing my reception. All right, you know what? You're breaking the rule of 2 years. You're trashing my reception. If you weren't, I mean, before we were recording, you were trashing my podcast setup because there was some errors going on. That's older. Yeah, I can tell that's older than 2 years, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
You got so many more wrinkles now. I'm
God.
just kidding.
Wait, honestly though, honestly, I don't look like that anymore.
I mean, you do, but you definitely look younger there. You have bangs
Seriously?
now.
I know.
You don't
that's
have
the
bangs
thing.
in that
but
picture.
I just recently did the bang thing. Like
How
within the
many
last
years
month.
ago is that picture from?
Maybe like 5.
All right, that's 5 years ago.
Yeah. I do look younger there.
You do look, but your hair is different. You have a different look. You have bangs
Yeah, but I
now.
have like other pictures where like that's recent. That's actually from earlier this year, and then that is.
See,
from
that
Halloween.
looks like you. That looks exactly like you. Your actual first picture on
Yeah.
this looks exactly like you. But that picture that you were like, yeah, this is from 5 years ago. I can tell that it's from 5 years ago.
Shit. Okay, I'm taking that down. I don't want to be one of those people where like, you don't look. No, actually, the last guy I met, he's like, I look better than my pictures. So maybe I should keep that on. Okay,
Maybe
all
sure.
right. I'm not gonna say anything
Yeah,
else.
enough of this. Get all conceited. This guy told me, he was like, I'm the most beautiful person he's ever seen. It's just like, maybe my pictures are working out.
Okay, I'm just gonna shut up about my looks.
No, it's fine.
Fuck. My ego was way up here when I walked in, and now it's like.
Just because I said that
woo.
you don't look like a picture of you from 5 years ago.
I
You know
used
what?
to get I look like a 26-year-old, but now it's 30.
Well, that's one thing that you did mention in your profile. You were like, I am actually my age, because it's like you do look younger than how old you are.
That's why I do it. Well, not because it's honest, but like I'm proud of how I look too. I know I don't look like a typical 40-something person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if I would have seen you, I would have been like, yeah, she's like 35.
35?
I don't know. I also am bad with guessing ages. I think that everyone is around my age.
But you're not 35.
Yeah, 30. Well, 35 is more around
Oh
my
my
age
God.
than 42.
Oh yeah. No, that's another thing that I hate. Like, there are so many guys that lie about their age on there.
Will they say they're younger or older?
Younger.
It's weird because there's a lot of women that I've found that on their profile it'll say that they're 25, and then you read their bio and it's like, I'm actually 19. I don't know why it says I'm 25. It's like, fucking fix that then.
No, you know why it is that. That's bullshit. When they say, oh, I don't know how to fix it, and it's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Or delete and start over, whatever.
It's the new millennium.
You're not
Fix
that
it.
lame.
Yeah, you're a
You're
19
lame
year
on a
old.
different. I know.
You can figure it out.
No, guys will do that shit too. They'll be like, they'll show up in my date range, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm really 55, and it's like, well, why the fuck are you saying you're 40 or
Yeah.
36 or whatever? I mean, why would you want to start something like being dishonest like that? You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the other thing too. It's like, well, if somebody doesn't want to date somebody that's 45, then why do you want to date them? So just be honest about your age.
Well, what's your date range? Because I'm on there, I'm 30. You're 42, and we matched. You're looking for a little cub? You're looking for a little... You cougaring?
My date range is like 30 to 45.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you like them young.
Well, that's another thing. Okay, I have a bad experience. Okay, my reason is irrelevant now because I've been disproved. But like, I had an ex who had a kid, and it was just like a hell of a relationship. And so I'm like, I'm never dating a guy that has a kid ever again. And so I'm like, oh, well, if they're younger, they're less likely to have a kid.
That makes sense.
But
Checks out.
I got matched with like a 20-something-year-old guy, and he seemed mature, whatever, not just like looks wise. And
It was the kid of the guy that you were dating. The 55-year-old with the kid.
oh my my god, that would be so fucking weird. No, he was like 20 something, and then he seemed mature on his profile, and then so I gave him my number, and then the first thing he texted me is like 5 selfies of himself, like shirtless, half naked, and then I'm just like, okay, I hope you don't expect me to reciprocate, because like I don't really, I don't like selfies.
Yeah.
And I don't just give unsolicited pictures.
Yeah.
And he insisted on me sending more, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't do that. And he's like, well, what about your Instagram? I'm like, well, my dog has an Instagram. You could check her out. Like, you could check out my dog's Instagram. And then he's like, you don't have anything? I'm like, well, I have pictures with my ex, but I think that'll be kind of weird. And he's like, no, go ahead and send them.
That'll be hot.
No, he's like, go ahead and send them. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm curious. And I was like, okay. And then so I sent him one, but I felt weird, and I was like, okay, I feel weird about this, and I don't want to send any more to you.
Did you ever meet up with him?
So check this out. So I sent it to him, and then he's like, he asked me that stupid question, like, oh, so you're into like younger guys or something? And I'm like, this is all through text.
Hey, whoa. That's not a stupid question. That's a hard-hitting interview podcast question. You take it back right now.
But he's not hosting a podcast or anything.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I hate it when guys ask that. I can see the reason why they do, but I just don't like it. And so he asked me that, and I told him the reason. And he's like, that's not fair. You're like jumping to conclusions, and you're, that's not right. You shouldn't just judge people like that. And then I was just like, why are you getting so defensive? Because he had a kid.
Oh,
he
there you
was
go.
20 something, and he had a fucking kid. And I was like, okay, well, that disproves my whole theory.
Yep. Yes, it does.
And then I was just like, yo, like, okay, I don't want to get involved with anybody that has a kid. Like, I mean, he kept on insisting. He kept on, like, being really defensive about it. And then so I told him, listen, like, I don't want to lecture anybody. Like, obviously, this is not going to work out. And, good luck to you, but I'm just not into it. So I deleted him, and then I knew he was going to be argumentative, so I just blocked him. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. So I walk into my doctor's appointment, and then an hour later, I come out to, like, 5 missed calls and this voicemails, and so I'm like, what the hell? But it was from a number that wasn't in my contacts. It was like an unknown. And then so I listened to the voicemail, and it's him. He found another phone number to call me from, just so he can argue his point to me on my voicemail. And I was just like, he said stuff like, listen, it's not, there's no drama or anything. Like this, the mom of my daughter won't let me see her. She pretty much used me to have the baby, and she won't let me see her. But there's no drama.
Yeah, that sounds like a shitload of drama.
And I was like, that's all drama right there.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And listen, don't call me again. Don't try to find a way to talk to me on another number. It's just, I don't want to, like, why? Why would you want to convince somebody that obviously does not want to get involved with you? Like,
also, if you blocked the number, I had an ex do that to me. Like, I blocked this girl's number, and every couple months she'll text me from a different number, and I'll be like, hey, how are you doing? And I won't have the number, so I'm like, I'm fine, who is this? And she'll be like, oh, I can't believe you don't realize who it is at this point. It's blah. And I'm like, and then she'll be like, unblock my number so I can talk to you. And I'm like, I blocked your number for a reason. It's because I don't want to talk to you.
And I don't want to date somebody named Blah.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to save her for the protection, but I don't know why, because she's a huge piece of shit. I don't know why. I'm like, I need to protect her identity. If I just gave her first name, but if she's listening, you know who you are, and you're a huge piece of shit, and I don't want to talk to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, she was just a weird person. But anyway, back to you.
Tell us more about that, Joe.
You're like, you're trying to deflect. I don't want to talk about me dating 20-year-olds anymore. How old in the 20s was he? Like 27 or what?
He might have been like 26.
I mean, you know what's crazy is, so we're in LA, but in all other parts of the country except for like, New York City, like that's normal child having ages.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like,
I should have known. I mean, but whatever. Yeah.
Why should you have known? Were all of his pictures with children?
No. No, I mean, I should have known that anybody of any age could likely have a kid or whatever.
I don't know if you heard of this show. It's called Teen Mom. You can have them in your teens, Audrey.
Exactly. I don't know. So now, but the other thing is like I'm more open to dating somebody who has a kid now because I know not every situation is like the way my ex's was. It was so bad. Yeah.
So what was bad about it?
Like
was the kid like a piece of shit, or was there like custody drama?
Yes. All
okay.
That. All that. And the ex-wife just...
How old was the kid?
Just like grade school age.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was like manipulative. I mean, he's a result of his situation, but it doesn't mean I have to like him.
That's true.
So it's like, whatever.
You can feel what, like, they can tell like it's a good person or whatever, and they're like, they just must be in a shitty situation, but it doesn't mean that you have to date that person.
No. Well, I wasn't gonna date his son. I mean, we were talking about his son, so I wasn't gonna date him anyway.
The kid was okay. Yeah, the kid was a result of this. I thought you were talking about the dad.
No.
Whoops.
No.
Whatever. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. This is To Catch a Predator podcast version. Chris Hansen, why don't you have a seat? Why don't you have a seat, Audrey? We got some milk and cookies here. Why did you bring condoms to a grade school? Oh boy.
Oh,
yeah. Fucking weird.
No, and then after we broke up, I mean, I just kind of fell out of love, and that relationship was just so draining. And I mean, I don't have any ill feelings towards my ex. I mean, he's trying to be a good father. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just ran its course.
Yeah.
And so I left that relationship, and maybe like a couple months later, he texts me and he's like, "Hey, did so-and-so text you or contact you?" Like his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "No, why would she?" And he's like, "Well, she wants you to testify against me for custody." And I'm like, I'm like, listen, I left
Look,
this
I was just trying to get some dick, bro.
What the hell? Well, I was like, I left this relationship exactly because of that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but also it's like, just because we're split up, it doesn't mean I'm going to automatically testify against you. I have nothing against him. I mean, he's a good guy, so I still wish him the best and everything. And so that's why I, like, for her to just assume something like that, too.
Yeah.
It's pretty dumb.
It's really ballsy. And
it's pretty idiotic,
yeah.
actually. So, but she hasn't.
Well, there you go.
So
she didn't
thank
actually
God.
do it.
Sorry, I had to knock on wood. I'm like, thank God she hasn't done it.
Yeah, before the podcast,
Jesus.
I tell everybody, like, try not to bang on the table.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Audrey's just like, bang, bang, bang. But it was appropriate. So.
But it wasn't too hard.
No,
right?
yeah, you don't have headphones.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Okay,
just kidding.
sorry.
It was fine.
Okay.
Just fucking with you. So what do you look for, like, when you're like looking for somebody to swipe right on? What's like something that like you're like, what's your type? You have a type at all, or what?
Well, my type is attractive.
Oh, there you go.
And but it's not just like good looking or anything. If they have just bathroom shirtless selfies, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna swipe right either.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you what I don't like.
All right, yeah, let's get some deal breakers.
Let's go down the list.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question. Let's hear some deal breakers that you got.
Let's see. If all they have are selfies.
Yeah, that's the sign that, like, you don't have a friend to take a picture of you. You don't have
have friends.
Number one, you don't have a friend to take a picture of you. Number two, you don't know how to work a self-timer. Like, there's so many options. There's self-timers on the phone. You can take a video of yourself and screenshot when you look best. I've done that.
Yeah, exactly. Or if they're flipping off the camera, like what is up with that? Why are you flipping off the camera? Why?
Shelly's such a badass.
I don't understand that. I haven't figured out. And another is if there's pictures of them with like beautiful women, and it's like arm in arm or something. It's like, what are you trying to prove? Like, oh, so you're around beautiful women, and so that means I should like you? Like that?
I'll tell you exactly what that proves.
Okay.
That proves that women are comfortable being around them.
Yeah, that's stupid. Why should you have to prove that?
Because if you have a bunch of
do
pictures... No, I don't do that.
Oh.
But if you have I know the thought process behind it is because if you have pictures of you with other women, it means that like you're safe. It's like that other women feel comfortable being around you, so you're not like threatening.
See, that's not the impression I get.
What's the impression
The impression I get is like, oh, look
how
like,
many chicks all banging.
Exactly.
Really?
Like, or these are the kind of people that I surround myself with. These are the kind of women, like, I could have these women, but, you know, I'm just gonna, like, choose you if we match or whatever. That's the impression that I get. It's pretty douchey. Like, either way.
Yeah, I would never put if it's like a picture of me with like 3 bikini babes, it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Or like I'm at like Hooters or something.
Yeah, and then pictures like that, you know? Like, what the heck? Or, if a guy in a profile, he doesn't even make any effort and just says, ask me.
Oh, so many women do that. You have no
Seriously?
idea. That's all women.
Well, you know what? I'm sure it's not exclusive just to guys, obviously. Like, I guess people in general that do that shit, it's like, you're not gonna make any effort. Like, at least make something. Like, something.
Well, that's why I think Hinge is good. And that's why I was like, oh, it's weird that you didn't like Hinge, because they give you like icebreaker questions.
Yeah, I know. And the whole time that I was on there, nobody talked about any of those icebreaker questions. No.
Oh.
No.
Weird.
I know. I just didn't have success on there, I guess. Well, I did match with somebody on there, and then we matched on Bumble too. That was when I was like doing multiple
Doing them
apps.
all.
And then he would talk to me on the other app, and I'm like, didn't we match on the other app? And he's like, oh, did we? I'm like, yeah.
There was one time I matched with a girl on all 3. Bumble, Hinge, and... But when I matched with her on Tinder last, I was like, I just sent her a message. I was like, the trifecta! We did it! The Holy Trinity. And I don't think we met up.
Oh, that's a good line, though.
Yeah. More deal breakers?
Let me see. What else?
Well, I feel like if there's a picture with a kid, you're going to left swipe.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
Not anymore?
No.
You've matured.
Yeah, because the last guy I dated, he had a kid, and it was a completely different situation. And it was fine.
It was more positive.
Yeah, it was a lot more positive. And that was the first time I feel like I fucked up.
Oh, I love these stories. How did you fuck up? These are like so much better to me because it's more honest.
Oh.
What'd you do?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is the first time I feel like I'm the one that fucked up in a relationship. Like, seriously, honestly, all my life I feel like the guy's always just been the asshole, idiot, immature, whatever. But this time, I had like PTSD, I guess, from my ex.
The one with the kid?
Yeah. I was with him for like over 2 years, 2.5 years almost. And there was just filled with so many disappointments, like canceling stuff. Like, it got to a point where we couldn't plan anything. Or we would try to, and it would cancel, or we can only do it only up to a certain point, and then he'd have to go off, like, pick up the kid or stuff like that. So that's why after that I was like, I don't want to be like second. I want to be more of a priority to somebody because I feel like I deserve it. And so initially when this guy messaged me, like, I saw that he had a kid, and I told him, I'm like, did you see how my profile says no kids? And he's like, Yeah, but like, I feel like it's nice to connect with somebody on any level, so it would be cool. I'm like, okay, well, just let you know, we're just gonna be friends. Like, I just don't do that, and I don't date guys with kids anymore. And he's like, yeah, cool. And then so that there was one day when my friends came to visit me at work, and then I told them about him, and they were like, you should give him a shot. You never know. It's just give him a chance and stuff. And so they convinced me, and so we went out, and I liked him more than I thought I would. And because he's not really the type that I'd go out with, he was just like all punked out and like piercings and pale. Super pale.
All right, we get it. You hate white people. I'm just kidding.
But also, like, I mean, his pictures weren't that. I just didn't think I would be attracted to him. But then, his personality showed through, and like, so I decided that I was interested, and then so we started going out, and then the kid thing never got in the way, and I knew it. The kid lived with the mom full time, and they had a set schedule that they really followed, and it was an amicable thing, and they were really civil to each other, so it was completely different than my ex's situation. I really hope he doesn't listen to this. Jesus. Okay, so we're going out for like maybe a few weeks, and his birthday was coming up, and so he's like a straight edge vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. It's like, vegan? Oh, fuck that shit. Like, no. And why? Why does it have to be both the kid and he's vegan? Like, why can't it be either one? Either one I could totally, like, accept and tolerate and deal with, but, like, both of those things at the same time, it was just like, oh, man.
My friend Sasha has a phrase about that, where if it's like you have a lot of those, she said you got to pick a struggle. You can't have all of these things.
Right?
You got to
It's
pick a
just
struggle.
too much. But I thought it would be, like, a good influence on my diet anyways, because I eat crap. That is one of my vices, is like junk food, empty calories. Like, and so I thought, oh, you know what? This will be a good influence. This will be good for me too. And so for his birthday, oh my God, okay. I've told this story so many times. So anyway, so for his birthday, I baked him a 6-layer peanut butter vegan cake.
Mm-hmm.
And I decorated it with homemade vegan candy corn, because that's what I do. And I presented it to him, and he seemed kind of like taken aback a little bit, like maybe weirded out. And so I asked him, I was like, is this weird? Are you weirded out by this? Like, because you can tell me. Like, and he's like, no, it's really sweet. Like, thank you so much. Like, and he even almost ate like a whole slice of it. So even though I thought it tasted weird, but whatever, So he ate it, and he was sweet and nice about it. And then the next day we were supposed to go to an event that I bought tickets for. And I just had this feeling, even though he reassured me like that the cake was fine and everything, I had this feeling. I just had this feeling that he was going to bail or cancel. And the next day came, didn't hear from him all day. And then at 8 o'clock at night, I texted him because our tickets were for like 9:30. And he's like, I have a migraine, I can't go. And I was just like, fuck. And then I was so bummed. But I told my friends, and then they were like, oh, well, just reschedule it for tomorrow or something, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's right. So I reschedule it, and I'm like, hey, I just rescheduled it. Like, can you go tomorrow? And he's like, oh no, like, I invited my kid to spend the night. And then at that moment, I got the flashback, PTSD. And I was just like, oh, this is why I don't want to date somebody with a kid. I know. That was so
I was
fucked
like,
up.
I was like wondering where you were gonna fuck up. Because you were like, I made this cake. I was like, do you really think that was like the downfall of this? Like you made him a cake?
No, setting up the whole thing, like.
And you told him that this is why I don't want to date a person with a kid?
This is why I didn't want to get involved with somebody with a kid.
Oh,
which
man.
is, yeah, pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And now I recognized it later, and he was just like, okay, so I texted him that, and he's like, well, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry I have a migraine, blah, blah. And I was like, well, it's okay. It's fine. Like, I'll just talk to you later. And so the next day, I texted him. I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? I'm really sorry about what I said. Like, I shouldn't have said that. That was bad. Like, and he's like, well, I feel worse. He's like, I tried to go to the doctor, and I had to pull over because I thought I was going to throw up. And I'm like, well, shit, you could call me. Like,
yeah.
We're a team, right? Like, I could take you. Like, you can ask me, And he's like, oh, I appreciate it, but, whatever. And he's like, I had to cancel on my kid, too, so... I can't see him tonight either. And I was like, okay, well, let me know if you need anything, like anything, just tell me. And he's like, okay, yeah. I went to that event with another friend, and I told him, I'm like, I'm on my way to dinner, and we're gonna go to that thing. And he's like, oh, I'm really glad you found somebody to go with, like, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. Then Sunday comes along, and I'm like, I check up on him again. I text him. I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you better? Like, how is it? And he's like, yeah, I'm feeling so much better. And I got to see my son and blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm so glad. That's great. And he's like, well, how was the event? And I was like, yeah. And I told him a little bit about it. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then that was it, like, on a Sunday. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I went about my day. Monday comes along, I don't hear from him. Tuesday comes along, I don't hear from him. And it's abnormal. It's like we text and talk every day. And then so Tuesday, I'm like, at 10 o'clock, I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? Are you okay? Like, or is everything all right? And he's like, I just got home a little while ago, and I have an early morning tomorrow, so can we talk tomorrow? And at that moment, I was just like, okay, this is bullshit. We stayed up till like 4 a.m. during the week. Mm-hmm. Like, what? And this is like 10 o'clock. This is like nothing for him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, can we at least talk for like 5 minutes? Like, and so he calls me, and I was like, so what's going on? Is everything okay? And he's like, well, it really bothered me what happened. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I know, I'm really sorry. Like, we didn't even talk about it. I'm sorry about what happened. It was just like PTSD. Like, it just brought back this momentary thing. And he's like, well, it was on my birthday. And it's like, and I know what he meant. It's like, of all days, why should I throw a tantrum like that on his birthday? And the truth of it is, maybe it sounds like a cop-out or something, but it really did bring me back to, like, all those times, like, those 2.5 years where it was just full of, like, disappointment. And I told him, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. That happens to me, too, sometimes, when something happens and it brings me back to, like, whatever. And he's like, listen, like, so why don't we meet up tomorrow and we'll talk about it? And I was like, all right. So that was Tuesday, right? Wednesday comes along, and it's like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, so are we still gonna meet up? And I text him, I don't hear from him. Mm-hmm. And then Thursday comes around, and I wake up, and I'm like expecting maybe something, and there's nothing. And I was like, wait, did something bad really did happen to him or something? Like, I hope not. So I text him again, and I'm like, hey, I really hope nothing awful happened to you. But I also added, I mean, ghosting is the worst thing you could do to somebody. Mm-hmm. I really hope you're not doing that, because this whole time, you made me believe that you're not the kind of person that would do that. And if you're done with this relationship, you can at least tell me. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to go psycho bitch on you or anything. And he responds, he's like, oh, I fell asleep on the sofa last night. And I'm like, so you didn't think to tell me this morning? Like, and he's like, no, not really. It's been crazy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, as far as the relationship, yeah, I think we're done. I can't get past what happened. And I'm like, okay, you're not even gonna talk. And okay, first of all, you're gonna fucking break up with me through text? Really? Like, are we in high school? No. Like, what the fuck, you know? And then he totally internalized everything and didn't even talk to me about it. At least, like, I feel like at least it was like should be an in-person type of breakup or something. Like, you know, we were exclusive, and he's the one that wanted to be exclusive so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, not to mention the fact that he was the one that was like, let's meet up tomorrow and we can talk about it. And then just didn't text you that whole day and then the next day until you were like pressing him.
Fucking bullshit, right? And so, yeah, that's what happened. And I mean, I know what I said was fucked up, but I don't think I deserve to be like ignored or ghosted. If we're in a relationship, like, what the fuck, you know? And so, are we allowed to cut?
Yeah. That's basically all I do on this podcast. Are you going to beep me? Okay. If I was beeping people, this shit would never come out.
It would just be beep, 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 beep the whole time. Yeah, so that's what happened. And fuck, and he had my parking permit for my complex too. And I'm like, can you just return my parking permit? And then he's like, yeah, of course I'm going to return it. I'm like, okay. And then that day I was just like kicking myself. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like for the first time I felt like shit because I was the one. It's like such a different feeling than being shitted on than be the one that shit on the relationship, you know? And so I was just like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I fucked up so bad. I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? And luckily, like, I already had an appointment with my psychiatrist that day, and so I told her everything about it, and she's just like, she's so funny. She is more like a girlfriend than like a psychiatrist, like my doctor. She's so funny. I told her what happened, and she's like, listen, let me tell you, I could shred into this guy right now if I wanted to, but you guys might get together again, and so I don't want to tell you anything bad about it.
I don't want to give you my opinion on this.
No, I'm like, we are not getting back together. Trust me, this is not going to happen. And then she's like, well, first of all, if he's not even going to talk to you, like, and he just wants to ignore you and ghost you like that, like, it's a good thing you know, like, early on instead of way into the relationship. And
well, how long were you going out with this?
We were only going out for, like, a month.
Mm.
And, like, maybe 2 weeks in, he wanted to be exclusive. And then I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, just going with it, like, and so the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, I did fuck up, but, like, I didn't deserve, like, being treated like that. That felt really shitty. And then so I decided to pen this whole thing, like, because we didn't get to talk about it, and so I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. So I said everything that I wanted to say to him, and I said stuff like what I felt. I'm like, you know, I feel like I deserved to have been heard, and I felt like I deserved at least some sort of in-person type of breakup at least, if we're gonna do that. Like, ghosting, that's such bullshit, and, you know, you consider yourself, like, you think you do the right thing, you always say you try to do the right thing, but that was straight fucked up, what you did. And you don't consider yourself a flake, but you are. Sorry. And when I sent that was when I kissed my parking pass goodbye. Like, I knew it. I was like, oh well, I'll pay $35 again for that parking. So.
That's so I'm with you. I understand exactly what happens. Like, when you've gone through a relationship like that before, where you're like seeing the same signs and stuff, it's very hard to.
But the thing is, it was just a totally different thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, I had that nagging feeling that he was gonna do what he did, and so
The ghosting or the bailing on you?
The bailing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like maybe it was like too grand of a gesture for him or something. I don't know. It's not like that hasn't happened to me before. That happened to me earlier this year too.
I mean, it happens all the time to everybody. But, you try and learn from it.
And people getting freaked out.
Dude, there have been times where, and I talk about it all the time, where I, like, bought tickets. It's like a first date, and then I'm talking to the person. I'm like, hey, you want to go to this thing? It's really cool. And they're like, yeah, sure. And then I'll get tickets for it. And then the day of, they're like, you know what? Never mind. That's kind of like...
What?
And then so I'm like, well, fuck. Now I got these tickets to this thing. I got to, like, scramble to find somebody to do it with.
Well, the first date thing, that's different.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and now I've learned. Now it's like, I'm not fucking doing that shit again.
No, like, I've done something earlier this year, and I really liked the guy. It was like, I guess, I don't know, I just picked the wrong guys or something. I don't know what it is. Like,
Well, what are these events that you're getting tickets to?
Oh, like with my ex?
Yeah.
Just like movie tickets.
Or that's not like a grand gesture.
No, not that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about. That's not the grand gesture I'm talking about. The grand gesture that I'm talking about is like I'll make something that took a long time. Remember what I told you I did before? With
the cake, the vegan cake.
Well, remember what I told you was like my side hustle.
Oh yeah.
Those take a long time to make.
Yeah.
And so earlier this year, I made something like that for this guy that I was seeing. And he totally freaked out. And I could tell because when I gave it to him, like, he didn't say anything. He just looked at it. He just looked at it and he just did not say anything for like a really long time. And I'm like, do you like it? Like,
I'm not going to, let's not like be weird. Like, you're an artist. You've made like a piece of art for him. It's not like.
Yeah, but I think it was too much for him. And
we were being like very vague about it. It's like I made this thing for him and I gave it to him.
But like, you know what I made.
Yeah, I know what you made, but I didn't want like people listening to be like, what does she fucking make? She's an artist.
Listen, people listening. I made something that took a really long time, and it was significant to stuff that he told me that he liked. And so, yeah, I made that for him, and he obviously freaked the fuck out. And the other thing though is like he was bipolar, and I had never dated anybody that was bipolar, and I didn't know how difficult it was gonna be. And when he told me he was bipolar, I didn't think it was a big deal. He said he had it under control. He was taking medication and he was fine or whatever. Obviously he wasn't. And that's that. But fuck. So when he told me he was bipolar, I'm like, okay, I've never dated. I totally don't know anything about, dating somebody who's bipolar or the thing anyways. And so I was researching, I was looking stuff up. I even went on Reddit on some bipolar board, like subreddits and stuff, and then there was all these people that were posting about dating or they're in relationships with other people that their partners were bipolar, and everybody was so miserable.
Oh man.
Every single thread that was posted was like telling this story, and I would just be reading them and I'm like crying for these people because it's just like they're going through so much pain just being in the relationship, but they can't leave it because they're in love. And so
I also feel like people that are having good relationships aren't posting about that stuff on Reddit. Like you only hear, when you talk to your friends who are in relationships, you only hear like the bad news because the good news is boring. Like I'm a comedian. Whenever I talk to my friends about like, oh, hey, how was that show? If it's a good show and they had a good time, they just go, oh, it was a good show. But if they bombed, there's so many more details. It's such a much more interesting story. So I understand, like, if you were, like, reading all this stuff and you're like, oh, my God, being in a relationship with a bipolar person must be horrible because all you see are, like, bad stories. But I just think that people that have good stories aren't, wasting their time putting it out there.
Well, when I first started dating him, I told my therapist, about him, and I was telling her about him, and then she didn't tell me until after all that shit hit the fan. Afterwards, she's like, yeah, when you told me he was bipolar, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, and when that happened, oh my god, it was like the first time I felt like I was going out with somebody that was like had his shit together and was like an equal, and like he was driven, and he was financially stable, and he had like this really cool cat. It was the coolest cat. It was a Savannah cat. Have you heard of those? They're
No.
like, they kind of act like dogs, and they're pretty much wild cat. Yeah, they're tall and big, and but they're really cool. You can walk them on a leash. Like,
Oh, weird. I'll have to Google that after this is over.
Yeah. And so I feel like I made myself so vulnerable, and that was the other thing with the grand gesture. I felt so insecure because I felt like I just laid my whole heart out, and then that's what happened. But I don't know if I would change anything.
I mean, it sounds like you're like it's not like you're doing it maliciously. Like you're like, hey, I made this thing for you. I thought you'd like it. Like that's not a bad thing.
But I don't think I'm gonna do that again.
Yeah, maybe wait a couple more months. Maybe that's like a 6-month thing.
Well, I mean, okay, so my past relationships, like, I don't regret anything I did or whatever. Even this last one, I know I fucked up, but as long as I learn from it and I take something away from it, then, you know, I don't regret them.
Yeah.
But in the future, I am not gonna do that shit. It's okay. Don't worry about it, future dates.
I'm not crazy. I won't fuck it up. I
won't make you this extravagant gift that you can't handle.
You won't get any cakes from me, bitches.
No 6-layer cake.
Especially vegan. I mean, that's my problem is I keep like falling for these vegans, and then like,
are you serious?
Dude, like 3 months later, it's like they act like they're cool with me not being a vegan, and then like a couple months later, they're like, I just can't do this. Like, you're not vegan and you don't care about it. And I'm like, well, you knew that from the get-go. Like, why are we here now? Like, why did I waste my time? It's just that it's like everybody I think is attractive. I'm like, oh, but I just wish that people weren't vegan.
I can see where they come from, because it's like, okay, well, let's try and see if I can handle it. Just like with me and the kid thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm like, well, maybe this will be different. Maybe
3 times in a row.
Well, you stop that then.
I know, I really have to rein it in. Like, and then the person that I had a crush on, like, super hard recently is, like, even more vegan than all of those people. And just,
how
like,
is that? What
militant
do you mean even
vegan.
more?
The other ones that I dated were just, like, vegans, but they were chill about it. And they were kind of like, yeah, I'm vegan, but, like, it's fine that you're not, but I wish that you were, and, like, I care about this, but whatever. And if you didn't talk to them and, like, you wouldn't know that they were vegan, but this lady is, like, constantly posting about it and talking about it and wearing, like, I'm a vegan t-shirts and stuff, and I'm just like, I have no chance with you, because I'm not that. I just have such a crush on her. She's so nice, but it's just like there's no way that you would want to date me, you know? Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. That sucks.
So how long have you been on dating apps?
Oh, a really long time. I mean, you saw how old I am, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a long time. Well, I mean, it's so much more common now.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have this coworker. She's kind of shy and soft-spoken and stuff. And, like, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I tried to convince her. I'm like, it's no big deal. I'm, like, telling her, I'm like, whatever. A lot of people are on this. And she's just always been like, oh, no, it's too weird. I can't do that. I can't. No, I can't. But... And I even created a profile for her.
Like, look at all these guys that you can
I know, and I was like, look, this guy messaged you. You should go out with him. And she's like, she didn't look at it. She's like, oh, he does seem nice. And she's like, no, I can't do it. And she's like, can you just do? And so I'm like, fine, I'll delete it. All right, fine, you know. But like recently, she said that she finally got on a dating app, and then she's like, oh yeah, and then like I went out with this one guy and it was totally fine and everything. I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that what I've been trying to tell you? And she's just like, yeah, I know. And she's like, oh. I'm like,
You have any notable, just like worst first dates or worst person that you met? Where you're just like, who are you? Or just bizarre.
I went out with this one guy a couple weeks ago, and we were meeting up on a coffee shop, and we decided to walk around because there's a bunch of shops around there, and got the coffee or tea or whatever, and we started walking around and going in the shops, and at first I thought it was just because it was a small shop that we went into, but he was just like kind of right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
We went into another shop. He did the same shit again, and like he would not give me like 2 feet. Like
He was in your bubble.
Yeah, and I don't think he was being a creep about it. I think he was just like socially inept or something. And it got to a point where I almost said something, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings, or I didn't know how to put it in a way that would be okay, you know? And
here's how you do. You go, hey, you want to fucking back up? God damn, I can't breathe, you.
Listen, you see this area? It's called a bubble. And so I just didn't say anything, but he was kind of clueless. I endured like an hour. Like I didn't leave right away. I didn't want to be an asshole, but I was like, I knew nothing was gonna come of it. And afterwards, he was so clueless. He's like, hey, so when are we gonna hang out again? I'm like, nah, man, that's not gonna happen.
Bro, I had enough. Close encounters.
No, but that's the thing. I can't ghost. Like I fucking just can't do that. That's such bullshit. And so I told him, I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think so. And that's all you have to say. So that's what was that?
I was about to yawn and I didn't want to yawn in your
shit!
face.
Really? Am I that boring?
No, you're not that boring. Oh my god.
Not crazy enough.
Wait, hold on a second. You told me to remind you about somebody that you went out with in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh, okay. So this was a while ago. I matched with this guy. I'm pretty sure it was Tinder. He was really good looking in his pictures. And then I met up with him. I think it was House of Blues or something. Like his friend was playing there. And then saw the show. And then afterwards he's like, well, I have to go to this party in Hollywood Hills. And I'm just like, all right, well, I'm ready to have a good night, whatever. And I was ready to go home. And he's like, no, why don't you come with me? And then I remember I had promised my friend I would make him pancakes the next morning. And so I tried to use that as an excuse. I was like, no, I gotta make pancakes for my friend.
Oh, dude, I would, but I gotta make these pancakes, man.
And then he totally called me out. He's like, what? That's bullshit. What? Just because you... Like,
yeah, that is kind of bullshit. I would have called you out, too. I'd have been like, wait, who the fuck makes people pancakes?
But honestly, I was beyond the... I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to be an old lady and just go home and go to sleep and be comfortable, you know, not be all tired. So he's just like, we each got into our cars and then I followed him and then he had to get gas. And so I was like, okay, fine. And then so he's getting gas and then he comes over to me with like, what is it? Is it a Panama hat? There's no Havana hat. No, it's that. Yeah, it was a Panama hat, like the white hat.
It's like
whatever.
Made of straw? What's a Panama hat? I have no idea what that is.
I don't know what it's made of, but that's what it's called.
Okay.
It's a white hat.
I'll trust you.
Okay. And he came over and he put it on my head. He's like, you should wear this to the party. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm not gonna do that. And then, oh, you know what? I should brought. Okay. And then he gives me this card. It's like almost like a baseball card, but his face was on it, and it had all these like little stats about him. I should have brought it. Oh my gosh!
Like a business card?
No. It was like a collector's card
of the guy that you were on the date with.
Yes.
That's
and
awesome.
He's like, oh yeah, like I was on this thing, and it's like, I think he was Egyptian or something. And he's like, yeah, this is what little, like, teenage girls can collect these or something. And on it, I remember it had like, you know, these little questions like hobbies or what do you like and stuff like that, favorite place. And I remember his favorite place, it said, I like dark open areas or something like that. Oh my god, I should have brought it.
Dark open areas?
I should have brought it. I always forget about that. I should carry that with me when I tell people. So, we get to the party, and I guess his friend, it was like a doctor, like it was a party for doctors or something, because like his friend was a doctor, and it was at their, what is it called? Like when they're learning from the main, like a real doctor? When they're like not interns, but they're like, you know what? Anyway,
not like an apprentice or something.
Yeah.
Residency.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know.
And so it was that guy's house, and then I guess all the people that were there were like not students of his, but you know, whatever. And they were all hot doctors. I was like, holy shit! Like, except for his friend.
Except for the guy that you were with.
Except for the guy that I was with and his friend.
Yeah.
And they were all really cool. I was having like great conversations with them. They were like really nice and awesome and like just hot doctors. And then so I start talking to his friend and him, and they're just the biggest dorks, like saying stuff like, yeah, I want to get thrown out of a bar. Like, I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, you know, dude, like last week I went to this one bar and we totally got kicked out because we were too crazy. And then I went back the next day and the bouncer's like, what are you doing here? Listen, this is not hyperbole. Like, this is verbatim.
Yeah.
And I remember because it was so stupid. I remember how it was, and I'm standing there between them and I'm looking at him like.
How old was this person?
I don't know, probably
sounds like a college kid.
Probably in their 30s or something. I mean, that's how long it takes to go through medical school and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, this sounds like 19-year-olds. Like,
but
yeah, bro, I was at this bar and they kicked me out and I came back and I was like, yeah, fuck you, you can't do anything about it.
That's my point, man.
Yeah.
They were so...
Grow up, doctors.
And so at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to go. Bye. Yeah. See ya. No. And then another thing that he said to convince me, he's like, come on, like, I want to go to a Hollywood Hills party with an Asian girl. Like, that's the thing to do in LA. And I was
everybody, like, Audrey is Asian, by the way, in case you didn't know. You didn't know? She's like, yeah, but I'm black. What does
that have to do with this?
No, Audrey's Asian. For everybody listening.
So that was one day.
What happened with you also talked about somebody that had a foot fetish, and you were like, I just kind of.
Oh my god, I really hope that.
I wasn't going to forget that.
I hope these guys don't hear or listen.
I hope they do! And they learn from their wrongs. Well, not having a foot fetish isn't wrong, but whatever.
I mean, he can't help being what he
is. He can't help what he's into. There's nothing wrong. Like, but I want to hear about this.
Well,
because it's so foreign to me because I don't really have
weird.
I don't have like weird fetishes, and like I tried to like research other ones and be like, I feel like I should have a fetish, and just like nothing really called out to me, and I'm just like, I want to be a cool fetish person.
I wish I was just more disturbed.
Yeah, it's like, I started looking at feet, and I was just like, who? Why? I don't get it.
Well,
but, I mean, like, there's,
So, this guy I dated, he said that my bare feet was the equivalent of walking around topless.
Really?
Yeah. And I have nice feet, too. Like,
well, I mean, how are you going to...
perky toes.
Nice and perky toes.
Very even.
I got nice feet, by the way. I'm just saying, if I took these bad boys off, you'd be good.
Very smooth. But yeah, and it's I mean, like.
So did he do anything with your feet?
Oh man.
Get into it. You better fucking give me details. You better give me details, you son of a bitch. Details.
Oh. This is so graphic. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Please.
Like he, oh, you know, when you're dating somebody and you start developing feelings for your own, like, you will do stuff, you know, like I said, you know, because you care about them, and so it's like, okay, I tried to roll with it and stuff. It was weird at the time. I mean, it's still weird now when I think about it, but, like, yeah, he was just having me rub my feet against his dong and stuff like that, and suck on my toes.
You gave him a foot job?
Yes. Yes. That kind of shit.
You're the first person I've known to admit giving a foot job. I mean, I'm sure I've met a bunch of people that have given foot jobs. Okay. But you're the first person I've gotten to admit, like, yeah, I did it.
Oh, I'm the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You're in the history books of my life. First person to admit to giving a foot job.
Fuck.
Did he jizz on your feet?
You know what? I honestly don't remember that. But I remember he did jizz when he was sucking on my toes.
He jizzed while he was sucking on your toes?
That was so weird.
Oh,
like, boy. I don't know. Like,
Well, you were talking about how you gave a guy a kiss and then he came.
Well, yeah, but that's different.
I don't know if we were recording when you talked about that. No. What happened there?
Well,
Audrey must be like the best kisser ever. She told me a story about how I was like, yeah, I was with this guy and we were making out and he just came in his pants. But what was he, like 16? What's this?
Ew, no.
I don't know. Listen, well, you could have been 16 at the time too.
Dude, listen, man, I'm just that good, okay?
Well, now
I'm just that good.
Start charging.
No. Ew.
It's a kissing booth.
Oh, God. $100.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, $100. Damn. You must really think that you're good. You got a big old ego on you.
Well, shit. I don't think I'm good. I know I am, obviously.
Whoa. Yeah, I mean.
No, all we did was kiss. I don't think. I mean, I don't know what the deal with him was. We just kissed for a little bit, and then all of a sudden that happened, and then I was just like, whoa, okay. And he acted like it was no big deal.
He was like, all right, you want to go to, like, the movies now? So aren't you going to change your pants? He's like, no. This happens.
No, and I remember he was, like, such an ass, too. Like, I was at his place, and then shortly after that, like, I was gonna walk to my car, and then he's like, well, where's your car? He wasn't even gonna walk me to my car. I'm like, he was, like, sticking his head out the door, like, oh, so where you parked at? And I'm like, I'm over there. Motherfucker.
Oh, where's your car?
Jesus.
And you're like, it's right over there. And he's like, oh, I'm glad you remember. See
ya.
Bye.
It's like, how can you know? I don't know. And he's the kind of guy that said, listen, ladies, I'm one of the good ones. Whenever any guy says, I'm one of the good ones, chances are he's not.
He's one of the bad ones.
Why would you have to say you're a good one? Like, that's so stupid. Like when people say stuff about themselves, like, on their profile, like, I'm really funny. Oh, really? Okay, well, fucking show it. Like, you don't have to, like, you telling people doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another thing. When the guys say they're funny on their profile, it's like, okay, no, obviously not. If you're telling yourself that
All right, Audrey. Do you have any other stories that you want to share? Anything popping up in your head before I ask you the last couple questions that I ask everybody? Any other bizarre situations that you found yourself in?
I've had interesting interactions that I'm sure other women have experienced as well. You know, just like lewd comments on when you're exchanging messages and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I matched with this one guy. He was like in his 20s, and I mean, he was really hot. And so hot where he looked like a model type hot. And then so he messages me. He's like, hey, gorgeous. And I was like, hey, you're pretty gorgeous. Is that really you? And he's like, well, yeah, I could prove it. And I'm like, how are you going to prove it? He's like, we can FaceTime. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to answer to, and I put like the eggplant emoji. I'm like, I'm not going to answer to this, am I? And he's like, no, not at all. And I was like, oh. And he's like, but if you like me, you could put it in your mouth.
Nice.
Oh my God. What
Fuck
the
yeah.
fuck?
That's a classy gentleman right there.
Oh my god. I was like, dude, even if you're thinking that, you don't say it out loud. But that's the thing. I'm sure there were girls that were like, okay. Like, that's why he said that. He feels like he can get away with that shit. So, whatever.
I'm going to admit this. I feel so lucky that I feel like I'm good looking enough to like get matches, but I'm not good looking enough to think that a line like that would work. So I feel like I have the right amount of like, I would never fucking say that. Like
No, it doesn't even have to do with that. It doesn't even have to do with the way you look. You
no,
just
because
have
a guy
to be
like
a decent
that.
person.
No, I think that guys like that think that they're like, I can get away with this because this is what I look like, and it works for them.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I've also talked to like really handsome, good-looking guys that don't say that shit. I think, well, maybe they're thinking it, but they're not stupid enough to say that shit out loud.
Yeah, it always amazes me how like unsuave some people are.
Remember I said, like, I feel like I need to start, like, a blog about giving advice to guys and telling them what not to do? Like, that's one thing. That's another thing. It's
I'm gonna be real with you. There's so many of those blogs. I think that they got it covered.
Well,
There's so many of those blogs.
None of these guys are reading it.
No. None of those guys are reading it.
Oh.
All right.
I'm sure there's other stuff, but I just can't think of it right now.
All right, that's fine. I will ask you the last couple questions before we wrap up. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. What is one thing that you would like to change about dating? If you have a magic wand, you could change one thing. What would it be?
That it's mandatory to put down your dating history.
Oh, you want like a dating resume?
Yes. Like why you broke up or what was the last breakup about? How you acted in that breakup?
Can I get references?
It says, yes. Because that says so much about somebody.
Yeah.
How you treat somebody even though you're not involved anymore. If you're a decent human being. Like, yeah. I had an ex that I was involved with, and when we got together, he told me about how him and his ex, I wanted to know, like, because that's a good indicator of, like, somebody's character. Like, how did you treat somebody when you guys broke up? And he told me, like, yeah, I was really self-righteous, and I made a list of things she needed to improve on.
What was on the list? Did he tell you?
I don't know what was on the list, but he said stuff like he would tell me stuff like she would complain when he gave her flowers, like he'll get her flowers and she'll be like, I can't believe these flowers had to die just for this or blah blah blah, and he's like, well shit, I won't give you flowers anymore, or I don't remember what else, but he said he made a list for her. And then I was just like, what the fuck?
To me, it sounds like both of them are douchebags. It's like, why'd you get me these flowers? They're just going to die anyway.
Why'd you guys break up? You guys sound perfect for each other.
Yeah, it's like just two different types of douche.
Like, he told me that when we started going out, and he said, like, yeah, I was really self-righteous, and I was, like, such a dick to her. And so I was just like, okay.
That's a bad fucking...
Okay.
A bad selling point. I was a dickhead, but I won't be to you.
And you know what? Like, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, Like, people can change. And so, since he was aware of it, he acknowledged it. I'm like, okay, maybe, like, he won't be like that. But no. No, he was not. When... I hope he does listen to this.
Just send it to him. Hey, check this out.
Okay.
Go in an hour and 8 minutes in.
So, like, this one time, this is towards the end. This is the last couple days. Like, he was helping me with something he was helping fix my closet. And, I was in the kitchen. I was, like, trying to make dinner for us. And then he's like, well, I'm almost done here. Do you need help in there? I'm like, yeah, come over. And he's like, okay, what do you want me to do? I'm like, well, you can make the quinoa. And he's like, okay, well, I need a measuring spoon. And so I open up my cabinet. It's like up here above us, and I was like, well, it's right there, but don't take just the measuring spoon. Take out the whole thing. It was like in a measuring cup.
Mm-hmm.
He fucking doesn't listen to me. And he does, he takes out just a spoon. And of course, everything falls onto the ground.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, under my breath, I was like, that's why I said to take the whole thing. But he fucking blew up, and he like couldn't take a joke, and he couldn't laugh at himself, and he was just like, fuck this. And then he just went into the other room, and I'm like, and I even said this, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? What is the big fucking deal?
Yeah.
Are you really pissed about this? And he's like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Whatever. And he's like, listen, just give me a minute. And I'm like, and I was like, that whole relationship, I was diffusing every relationship, every argument. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah. Because it was so stupid what we were arguing about. It's not worth getting into it. And so I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like, okay, like, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, Your Highness. Like,
wow, you're such a brat. I mean, that guy was definitely a dickhead, but like, that was, ooh, I'm sorry, Your Highness. Definitely adding fuel to the flames.
I didn't say it out loud, but that's what I was saying. And he's like, I just need some time. I just needed some time. And I'm like, all right, take
all the time you want, buddy, because mama's hitting the road. Uh-oh, somebody's screaming down the hall.
Good time.
Yeah.
And so after that, finally cooled off after like, an hour or something. And we're just eating dinner or whatever. And then, this is the other thing. I mean, this is another very good indicator of the kind of person that he was. Like, throughout our whole relationship, I think we went out for like 3 months, 3 months. I never got to finish whenever, and he didn't make any effort to do any of that.
Make sure, and then
nothing. And that morning, and it even got to, it's such a delicate subject to even bring up.
Yeah.
Like, it's so uncomfortable. Like, but communication is a really big, good communication is a really big, part of, a successful relationship. And so I was just like, it really makes me feel used.
Yeah.
When you don't do anything and whatever, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, man, I don't want to make you feel that way. I'm so sorry, blah, blah. But even after that, he wouldn't do anything.
Yeah,
he wouldn't do anything about it. So the next morning, we're doing it. Same shit happens again. And I don't say anything, and I just get up and I just go to the bathroom, and I'm just like, I don't say anything, but he has this look on his face like he knew he fucked up, and he
there are children screaming at the top of their lungs. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening outside of my apartment, but there are just kids screaming.
Can the microphone pick that up?
I can hear it in my headphones, so I know that, I'm sorry if people are listening, you just hear, little children just wailing as do you
want me to go out there?
As Audrey's about to be like, this guy never made me come.
Should I go beat their asses?
But anyway, he saw you. He knew he fucked up.
He knew he fucked up.
We're just gonna ignore the children screaming.
Yeah,
I just had to address it so people aren't like, "What the fuck's going on in the background?" I don't have children chained to my couch or anything.
We're doing this in front of an audience of
in front of my
10-year-olds.
In front of my sweatshop.
So yeah, I got up and I didn't say anything because at that point, I'm upset and I don't want to say anything that I would regret. So I just got up and I just left, but the thing is, I didn't give any attitude or anything. I was just like, well, maybe we'll talk about this later or whatever. But he's like, we're going to talk about this. And I'm just like, no, we're not. Not right now. And so later on, like, I'm acting as normal as I can. And he made plans to go hiking with his friends or something. And mind you, he brought his laundry over. And I did his fucking laundry. Because that's the kind of girlfriend I am. You hear that?
Everybody
people?
Lock it down for
yes.
If you are lucky enough to match with Audrey on Tinder.
I did his fucking laundry, and then we sit down, and he's like, let's talk. We need to talk. And I'm just like, all right, let's talk. And he sits me down, and he's like, let's talk about what Audrey needs to work on.
Oh, boy.
And
you got a list?
I was so fucking appalled, and I looked at him, I'm like, let's talk about what you need to work on. And then he lost it, and he's just like, that shouldn't have happened last night, and blah, blah. And I'm like, fucking A, like, a lot of shit shouldn't happen. It's how you react to it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't control every single thing somebody says or does, but, like, you know, you can talk to him, like, oh, that, I didn't really like that, how you, like, whatever, blah, blah. But he's just like, whatever. And he's like, what time is it? I have to go. Is my laundry ready?
Wow. You're the help now.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am such a fucking horrible person. I did your fucking laundry. Like, yeah.
Hey, here's something that you need to work on, buddy. Doing your own laundry.
Shit. And then yeah, like, I didn't talk to him for a week. And then we got together to talk, and then he's just like, I need to work on my temper. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, maybe it's the way my dad talked to my mom, but I just need to work on myself, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay, all right, fine, whatever. And like maybe a couple weeks later, I saw him back on Bumble or something, and I was just like, okay, you fucking asshole. Like,
yeah, you got it all figured out.
No, no, I'm like, wow, that's record time, self-improvement right there.
You looked in the mirror and was like,
Like,
stop
you
it.
know what?
And then
Stop.
he just went back out into the world.
Yeah. And the thing is like, he was like, yeah, you know, like, I usually don't want to keep in touch with, like, any ex-girlfriends, but, you know, you're just so great and you're so special that I want to keep in contact with you and blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, okay. And at the time, I felt that way too.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's just like, I mean, the more I thought about it, I was just like, no, I don't want to keep in touch with somebody like you. Like,
yeah.
And I even told one of my girlfriends about it, like, a couple months later, and she's like, fucking, that's narcissistic shit right there. And I was like, and it never even occurred to me, because when we first started going out, like, he did so much, like, the romantic stuff. It was like, he just totally swept me off my feet. And I told her all this, and she's like, well, yeah, but that's what they do. Like, in the beginning, they're all about you. They focus totally on you. They do everything. But then slowly, gradually, then it's flipped, and it's totally about them.
Yeah, I think it's because they want to show you, like, what a good person that they are, and then they want you to like, get obsessed with them, and then by the time that you're obsessed with them, it's already like, oh, it's too late.
Yeah. So, I mean, it never even occurred to me, but then when she said that, I was like, really? And then I looked that up, I Googled it, and I'm like, oh, shit, it's just totally, that's him.
Nailed it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Why did I say that?
I have no idea.
Why did I come up with that story?
I don't know where that came from.
I know.
But
there's a reason. Okay, sorry.
Here's the last question I'm going to ask you before we wrap the old podcast up.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice that you'd like to give everybody listening about dating?
Oh.
I need to say this right now. Every time I say that sentence, I feel like I'm fucking it up and it's not grammatically correct. What is one piece of advice that you'd like to give everyone listening about dating? Is that grammatically correct?
What's one piece of advice you would like to give people about dating? Is that what you said?
Well, replace people with everyone listening. Yeah, it's grammatically correct, I think. Hearing you say it sounded correct, but every time it comes out of my mouth, it just feels like I'm fumbling through it.
I think you added too many words.
Yeah, I don't know. What's one piece of advice about dating that you'd give people? There we go. That felt better. I'm such an idiot.
Just be honest. Be honest about your age. Be honest about your intentions, and be honest about how you're feeling. Good communication. I don't know. Is that one thing? Maybe that's not one thing. Okay. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Be a decent fucking human being. Shit.
Well, all right. That's a perfect way to end it. Be a decent fucking human being. Shit. Alrighty. All right, Audrey, thank you so much for doing the podcast. I really enjoyed this. Thank you. And there you have it, everybody. That was my chat with Audrey. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find out all the info you need to on datingishardcomedy.com. Follow the Instagram at datingishardcomedy, and follow me on Instagram at Joe Welkie. Please subscribe, rate, review, give it 5 stars, tell your friends, help make this podcast something bigger than it already is. I'm really loving doing this. I've considered myself lucky, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it too. I'm having a blast doing it and meeting all these awesome people. Thank you so much for stopping by and giving it a listen. And until next time, later.